Hey there, it's Gary Parrish. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting dodo birds and leaky black. Matt Norlander is here with me. If you're watching on YouTube, you know what to do to the like button. Shouts to Brandon Davies. If you haven't yet subscribed to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube channel, please also do that while you're here. Let's get into it. We are continuing our summer shoot-around series. We're going to be doing over a span of a few weeks, as I hope you know by now. Little different this year. We're just going through the top 25 and 1 through the top 10. We started with number 1 Kansas, number 2 Alabama. Those are in the books. Now we turn our attention to number 3 Houston. The Cougars went 32-5 overall last season, 15-3 in the Big 12. They treated the Big 12 like it was the AAC. Won the league by 2 games. Lost to Iowa State, the title game of the Big 12 tournament. Still got a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Then beat the Longwoods and Texas A&M to make the Sweet 16. That's when Jamal Shead got hurt. Season over, 54-51 loss to Duke. Alabama. Houston finished second in both KenPom and at Bart Torvik last season. Jamal Shead and Damian Dunn both gone from last season's team. That's 2 of the top 5 scorers, including the heart and soul of the program. But leading scorer L.J. Cryer, he's back. Amanda Sharp's back. Juwan Roberts is back. Javier Francis is back. And Kelvin Sampson likely going to fill out that starting lineup with a transfer from Oklahoma named Milos Uzan. Again, transfer from Oklahoma, so inter-conference transfer. Again, I've got Houston ranked 3rd in the top 25 and 1. We'll see what Norlander thinks about that next. But first, let's get a word from our partners.
Never before seen matches and new rivalries unlocked.
Trust me, we're just getting started.
The Summer Cup is here. Let these games begin.
All right, Norlander.
Mm-hmm.
Houston, preseason top 3 team.
Switch it up.
Can you dig it?
Oh, man.
Or do you despise it?
That's it. Well, here's the deal. Here's the deal.
Or do you despise it?
We're a podcast with transparency. And if you are of the dedicated kind that subscribes to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube page, first of all, we love you. If you have not done so, even if you're a hardcore listener on the pod, I get that, but just subscribe if you can. But if you're watching, you couldn't help but notice that GP and I happen to be wearing the same stuff as we were wearing during the Alabama episode. And that's because right now, I think this happens every year.
That's because we just finished the Alabama episode 4 minutes ago.
Yes,
and
right.
If you're wondering why I tried to just sneak Alabama into the script in the open, it's because I forgot to replace Alabama with Houston. I didn't delete.
Not just that, but Gary Parrish might not even be on the continent right now. He might be somewhere else on this planet. So just keep that in mind. And maybe when we could do the next one, when you come back, we mix up the digger to
clothes. I actually thought about changing clothes, and I thought that you would be like, no, it doesn't matter. I thought you'd be the one.
I'm good either way. We're good. We're good either way. We're good either way.
I'll change clothes right now.
I always love the idea of when this actually goes live, what will you be doing over in Europe when this actually publishes? Lord knows. Anyway, Houston finished number 2, 3 years running. This program has finished number 2, 3 years running at KenPom. It's averaged 30.2 wins the past 6 seasons. This is just ridiculous. 13 NCAA tournament wins in that span. Hasn't lost more than 5 league games in that span, and that's including postseason play and conference tournament play. It moved to the Big 12 last year. There was no drop-off, which is really impressive because it's, the Big 12. I was looking back at what Houston is. KenPom ranks every program in the sport since KenPom's been tracking the data going back to 96, 97. It's number 44 overall. I really think if you remove the Kelvin Sampson years, that Houston would not even be in the top 125 in men's D1 college basketball. That's how valuable he's been. Sasser and Shead, first-team All-Americans the past 2 years. If Shead doesn't get hurt, NC State was an amazing story, but maybe Houston's in the Final Four again. But it's not affecting where they're ranked here heading into the season. By all accounts, Sampson is nowhere close to done. I think he's got at least three more years on the bench. He'll be 69 in the fall. Cryer coming back is big. Remember, Joseph Tugler got injured. He could be among the more valuable defenders in the sport. It's just the way that Houston plays. They've always got 2 or 3 of the 15 best defenders in the sport. Should have that again. Uzan coming over from Oklahoma. Where I think he's actually going to be valuable, because we talked about Oklahoma and it won our auction bid. And on our next Shootaround episode, by the way. We'll have all the info that you need on where to bid if your team is not a subject of the summer. Shootaround, Uzan was highlighted. I thought he was going to have a big year. Turns out he thrives more, it seems, as playing more of the Robin role. If he's not asked to be the primary guy, he can really thrive, and I think he's going to really find a great spot there at Houston. Mercy Miller also, he's a young guy, but he might be able to get some run there. But this comes down to, is Cryer going to even elevate his game more? Francis and Roberts, they really probably should take a big jump. I'm in on them as always. How can you not? Until we see Houston fail to be a top 5 team, I'm just not going to pick them not to be a top 5 team. So we are pretty close here, GP. I don't know if I can pick them to be number 1, but I will tell you this: like we talked about Kansas a couple episodes ago, I look at what Houston has, and like Terrence Arsenault, he has been injured. I've been pumping this guy up for a couple years. Like, come on now, if he's going to make the big jump here. Can he be number 2, number 3 scorer alongside Cryer? Then I think Houston's got a chance at being the number 1 team. I might like this roster ever slightly more than Kansas, and a lot of that is on account of how hard they play, just relentless every single time. It's just a pain in the ass to prepare for this team. More optimism all around with Houston, and we talk about them so frequently. It feels like there's not a lot new to say here, but they deserve all the laudits and accolades they get. Kelvin Sampson has built out a Hall of Fame career, and I do expect this team to either be a number 1 or number 2 seed when we get to the tournament.
Kelvin has 2 Final Fours, one at Oklahoma, one at Houston, had a Final Four caliber team at Indiana before he was removed midseason with Eric Gordon as the star. And I really do think would have been in the Final Four last year if Jamal Shead just doesn't get hurt. I think they would have beaten Duke, and then I think they would have handled NC State. That would have been the path.
Yeah.
Do you agree? Houston would have been the Final Four.
I agree, because in talking to ACC folks here and there, like Duke wound up. Listen, Duke should have beaten NC State. NC State got it done. It's an amazing run, and that's why I love the sport and why I love the tournament. But I think NC State was in a advantageous position having to face Duke in that spot. A lot of pressure on Duke. NC State playing free and easy, and just the way that Houston plays. If Shead's entirely healthy, yeah, they're probably in the Final Four. But those are the breaks. That's the tournament, and injuries can happen, and it can be so fickle. Yeah.
You mentioned Kelvin, what he's done there. If you take out his Houston years, maybe Houston's not even in the top 125 at KenPom, and over those couple of decades. Has any person changed a basketball program more dramatically in the past 20 years than Kelvin Sampson? Scott Drew. Okay, that's a good one. I was going to say Brad Stevens, clearly.
Yes, but now Brad Stevens is close.
I mean, Brad Stevens took a Horizon League school, and they're now in the Big East because of him.
I know that, but like now he didn't stay. Like had he stayed, so some of the effects of that have diminished, right? So he's right there. He's at the table, obviously. Had he stayed, he might be at the top of the list. But I would put Drew 1, Sampson 2, maybe Stevens 3. There's a few coaches like that, but in terms of altering, like it's not quite at the level because the program was good. But like Tony Bennett did this for Virginia, which was a little adrift at sea for many, many years until he got there. It had obviously,
but adrift at sea is one thing. Houston was out of it was just sad.
Houston was.
I mean, I would go there as a former USA beat writer. Like it was dark and old and yucky, and nobody cared. There was nobody there. Yeah. To take that and turn it into what it is now, which is undeniably one of the best programs in America, is yes, it's Hall of Fame work. Just some numbers on it. Finished top 20 at KenPom 7 straight years, top 5 4 straight years, top 2 in the past 3 years. They are right now, for what it's worth, preseason number 1 at barttorvik.com.
There we go. So we have had Kansas, your preseason number 1. Mm-hmm. Bama, who might be mine and may wind up as KenPom preseason number 1, and is Rothstein's preseason number 1. And now we have Houston, which is preseason. Actually, I bet you Houston will also be preseason number 1 at KenPom, preseason number 1 here at Torvik. Will Houston, yes or no, have a first-team All-American for a 3rd straight season?
If so, it'll be LJ Cryer.
You would think it would be Cryer if they do it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he had like borderline All-American level. I mean, he averaged 15.5 points for a 1 seed last year.
I know. Yeah. I know.
If they do, it'll be Cryer. But I mean,
I'd say no. But the
problem is you got to. I mean, I think I would say no because you're dealing with RJ Davis. You're dealing with Mark Sears. if we're starting a pecking order, you would put both of them ahead of him, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Yes. All right.
Yeah.
So you already starting behind 2 guards, but maybe.
He's got a shot. I really think Juwan Robertson and Xavier Francis are going to be tremendous this season. If you're a Houston fan dialing in, like you know this, but if you're a casual fan just trying to keep up, Robertson, Francis, those, I mean, they're going to have depth. They're going to have toughness. There's a lot to like here. The schedule, non-con, I'm preparing you now because we're going to get a lot of this again. Non-con schedule, I think just okay is about as nice as you can say about this. They play Auburn on November 9th, GP, and that's in Houston, but it's not at home. It's at the Toyota Center. They're in the Players Era Festival, so they'll get Bama, big time matchup. And then just like Bama, they'll either play Notre Dame or Rutgers, unless the bracket changed. As of when we're recording this and when this episode runs, I guess there's a slight chance the format of the bracket could tweak, so keep that in mind here. And then they'll play one of San Diego State, Oregon, Creighton, or Texas A&M. So they'll get something, like they'll get enough in there. But then after that, the only other game of note that's not against a mid-major, and I don't know why this happened, but in the Big 12 Big East battle, which is put on by Fox, they have Butler. They host Butler. And that we're talking about a top 5 team here. Like it's straight up bizarre to me that this is just an inexplicable goof. Like Butler's not going to be a top 30 team in the country next season, barring absolute shock. And they were given no favors there. Everything else is going to be fodder. And so what I'm getting to here is that Houston's going to load up in the non-conference. It's going to dominate. People are going to see him high in the metrics while not acknowledging that they were preseason there to begin with. And the results in recent years bear this out anyway. And they're going to think that some code has been cracked when it's not that simple. I would have liked to have seen Houston. I mean, if you had taken 2 games from Bama's schedule, given it to Houston straight, that'd be so much better for the sport. Regardless, that's where we're at. Big 12 schedule, GP. The 2-timers, they play Baylor twice. Love to see it. Kansas twice, obviously. Oklahoma State twice, kind of forgettable. Texas Tech twice, maybe spicy there. McCaslin could have a team good enough to make the tournament again. Then West Virginia twice. They're not expected to be a top 12 team in the league. Home only, the notables, BYU, Cincinnati, Iowa State. Away only at Arizona, so they don't get to host Arizona, and then they are at Kansas State. They don't host them because the non-con schedule, GP, is so weak, relatively speaking, and because I think this team is so good. Remember, I had the Bama one at 22.5. I got the over-under here at 25.5, okay. and I almost went 26.5, but at a certain point, you're in the Big 12, you're going to take some L. So 25.5. I'll go first this time. I believe in Houston. I can see them not losing a game in non-conference play. I'm going to go over, and I'll say Houston enters the Big 12 tournament at 26-5.
Okay. I always count backwards. You know how I do this.
Yep.
I count backwards to find my number. I'm going to go 1 non-league loss.
Fair.
Just 1. I'm going to go 5 league losses, but still like top 2 finish in the league.
Okay.
That's 6. 31 minus 6. Got me at 25. 25 and 6 heading into the Big 12 tournament.
I'm narrowly more ambitious and in on Houston than you, but that's entirely fair. 5 league losses in a 20-game Big 12 schedule when you've got to play at Baylor, at Kansas, at Tech, at Arizona, at Kansas State. All of that is reasonable. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we might be entering an era in the Big 12 where if as long as you don't lose more than 4 or 5 games in the league, you can be the league champion. You won't like 18-2 is no longer ever necessary.
Yeah. Having said that, it might be it's Bill Self. Maybe it happens this year. Maybe it happens with Houston. There's going to be occasional year where that might happen. But yeah, broadly speaking, now 16-team league. At least for now, we'll see if that changes. It always is subject to. I would even say get to 5 losses and you're either 1 or 2 in the conference tournament bracket. You got to do it. It's going to be tough, but here we are again, Houston, and I just don't expect any drop off. And there were some that were anticipating a little bit of I'm not saying people that were, in the Big 12 around college, and by people, I mean like some coaches, sure, some media, I guess some fans as well, but I'm talking about coaches specifically. They were anticipating Houston would go from being a top 5 level team in the metrics to, let's just see what happens. Maybe they did dip down to that 10 to 20 range. It didn't happen last season at all, which is crazy. And again, knock on wood, barring injury, I just don't think it's going to happen again. That staff, Sampson and his assistants, led by his son Kellen, they're so good, and they've got enough offensive scoring and defense here that They are poised again, and the non-conference maybe gives them the confidence they need. I don't know. I wish they would play more challenging games because I want to watch them with more compelling games. But they'll be in, 3 games that are worth watching before we get to January 1. It puts them on a fast track of momentum, and they hope to make up the ground, and they normally have in conference play thereafter.
I mean, in fairness to people who might be skeptical of next season's team, I mean, what you and I believe is that Kelvin and his staff and that program are so rock solid that losing Jamal Shead doesn't matter. That's what we're saying.
Yeah, and losing Marcus Sasser didn't matter.
I know. I mean, right?
Yeah.
But you ready? At least when you lost Marcus Sasser, you had Jamal Shead.
I know, but we might say at least when you lost Jamal Shead, you had LJ Cryer.
I know, right?
Terrence Arsenault suddenly becomes like the 15-point-a-game scorer that they want. So we'll see. But there's no shortage of interesting storylines with Houston. And for me, I understand, like we just talked about Bama and their style of play. Houston's a lot different. It is a mugging, man. And it is oddly fun just to watch them torture some teams. It looks like hell for 40 minutes. And that's why they have been performing 4 years running as a top 5 outfit in the sport.
All right. Let's get out of here. Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Terry Teagle. He's a legend. Huck Larnell. Thank you guys once again for watching and listening to the Eye on College Basketball Podcast. If you're not subscribed, please go subscribe anywhere you subscribe to podcasts. Apple, Spotify. More of us than there are of them. That needs to be reflected in the comments. So make sure you're doing that, and we'll continue the summer shoot around real soon. Till then, take care.